May time to about like 30, 35 sessions by the end of July. And mind you, before all that, like my missus had to bail me out 1 month with all my bills. My parents had to bail me out 1 month with all my bills. I literally had 15 quid in my bank account after the first 3 months, which was like the lowest I've ever been financially. And I think I probably had to get to that point to really kind of figure out like what digging deep is and all the rest. So yeah, I was lucky enough to have that support system. Came out of that, like I said, kind of just made small tweaks. Like I wouldn't even say it was that, that big of a change. I just kind of applied my time a little bit better and kind of followed some of the things you guys said on the foundation workshop, which, to be honest, a lot of it hasn't massively changed in terms of kind of like what you said then to what you say now. Like a lot of the fundamentals are the same. And yeah, then at the time, because I'm on a visa every 2.5 years, so at the time I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to build up my CV. I was literally working like from 6 a.m. to again 8 p.m. every day. So my time was just shit, even though I had 35 hours a week making good money. And then I got into management. And then a year after that, I kind of set myself a goal. I wanted to become a GM, which would happen basically like a year to date. So it was like September, let's say 1st, 2016 became an AGM. So September 1st, 2017 became a GM. Then I kind of set myself another goal. I wanted to become a cluster manager. Did that about 9 months later. And then I was kind of fortunate enough to get the opportunity to be a PT mentor, which came about 9 months later, roughly, a bit maybe after. So yeah, it was a quick change, but I think a lot of what I learned in the foundation workshop, just how to manage my time, just kind of like being ambitious and having the courage to just try stuff really, really helped. That's kind of me in a nutshell. And throughout that time, I kind of like dipped in out of the coaching. When I became a GM and a CM, I kind of had to balance a little bit more of my career rather than the coaching. So I took a step back, but then recently kind of like fell in love with it again. So that's kind of where I am now, doing a bit more coaching, face-to-face, a lot more online naturally because of the time. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on right now.
Cool. Do you know what, mate? I think it's really important that you went through all aspects of that, because there's going to be a lot of personal trainers that watch this who've probably fluttered about with the decision of potentially going into management, the routes they will take through their career, through the fitness industry. Do they always want to be PT forever? And you've kind of done it all, although it's been a quick transition. You've kind of done it all. But before we go into the topic of the day about online coaching, how you've switched it on, what you've seen from that, the lessons you've learned, all of that type of stuff, because that's going to be really valuable for everybody. Just take you back to the start, because I remember meeting you for the first time, and I remember having like, I don't know if Nick was at this one. It was in Bramley, wasn't it? Or Hunslet, Leeds Hunslet Pure Gym. I remember walking into that course that day, and it was 54 personal trainers just sat in a studio on boxes. It was huge, and like they were the numbers we used to do back in the day, Nick. It was just me and you.
Yeah.
And when I asked that question, and we're throwing it out there, I remember chatting to you at the end. And again, you come into another one, and I chatted to you on the second course, and you were flirting with the idea of moving to David Lloyd, and we looked into certain things about what could potentially be improved and so on. And I think what stood you out to me from the first time I met you is that, yes, that kind of academic background, scientific kinesiology and stuff, and you're into sport, how you really wanted to fix on. You didn't just want to be another fat loss PT. You wanted to specialize in movement and educate people and support people in their movement, and from a physiology point of view and programming aspect. And it was more than just a PT role for you. There's a lot of PTs out there now that just doesn't want to be another fat loss coach, but get really stuck with being able to apply what they want to do, like be a movement specialist or be focused on S&C, build a business in a commercial gym. What would you say to them to give them advice?
That's a really good question. And you know what? Funny enough, I'd probably say it took me almost 4 or 5 years to figure out that answer. And I'd say even in the last kind of 3-4 months being in furlough and self-reflecting and being a bit more self-aware of what I want has kind of like led to that solution. So one of the biggest mistakes I think I made, and I think a lot of PTs make in the beginning, to your point, is you try to be a jack of all trades. You try to just kind of like generalize yourself as a weight loss PT or a muscle building PT, and you think in your head at the time that's quite niche, but the reality is that's not niche at all. It's just generic, right? And like I was reading something last night, is chances are someone who's found you to either lose weight, pack on muscle, whatever, I've probably tried to find someone like you for the last 4 or 5 years, if not recently, right? So what makes you any different? I think this is where not being afraid to really target exactly who you want. And that could be as specific as saying, I'm only going to work with men that are 25 to 28 years old, that are former athletes that want to, that want to get back to playing recreational football, that struggle because they have corporate jobs, because naturally they're very competitive and they want to make money, so they're probably in recruitment, and that way I'm going to just focus on that specific demographic. And that's something I didn't do, because to your point, when I probably told you I want to work with people and help them move better and all the rest, but then what I did is I did what everybody else did, and I just went and worked with General Pop because I thought, well, they're gonna pay me at the time, right? Whereas now, and again, that's kind of what I did with my online coaching. Like, I pretty much targeted all that same population, but then recently we've realized we don't want to work with them, not because we don't enjoy it, but we know we're going to enjoy working with a very specific set of individuals more. And if it takes us longer to get them, and we have to switch up our marketing and our advertising, then that's what we're going to do, because ultimately we're going to feel better about ourselves in the long run. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So I think for anybody out there who's starting, 100%, try things out, work with different people, and find out who you want to be as a coach. And I think that's very difficult sometimes for us to kind of nail that in the very beginning when you start off, because it's kind of like university. Everyone tells you to go to university and do this and do that. And a lot of people probably aren't ready for it until they're 27, 28, right? And it's kind of the same thing with PT. It's like, you might start with a specific population, and then you're going to find a new complete love for the game because you start learning about biomechanics and functional anatomy and movements. And if that's the path you want to go down, then yeah, 100% do it. But you might switch along the way. So don't be stressed and don't be frustrated if you don't necessarily nail that. Because like I said, it took me literally 4 or 5 years to really kind of go, what is it that I really want to do? And for me, it's working with former athletes who probably put on some weight and naturally kind of just want to feel better about themselves, get back to kind of some type of athletic shape, and then focus a lot on basketball. So I've been kind of putting those steps in place and reaching out to those people over the last 3 months. And it's going to pay off more so for the athletic side, but for the basketball side, I've already started to make some really good connections that way. So that's what I'd recommend.
Cool.
And with that, mate, when I kind of listening to that, it's such a common, the amount of times that we've obviously had, and you have through the foundation, trying to say, I want to work with athletes, And I suppose that athletic kind of demographic is so vast. It's so vast. And so what are now that you've kind of, I wouldn't say found that out, but more so, I guess, having the confidence to commit to it more so. What limitations do you have now with working with athletes? Because I know you said just then, it's the type of person who wants to get back to playing recreational sport, for example. So, because when we ping up the word athlete, I think it might just be me, but we automatically think professional.
Yeah.
High-end, top 1%, don't we? As soon as you say athlete, it kind of just, your mind goes straight to that. So it'd be really interesting to hear your take and expectations on, and your specific narrowing down of that athlete segment.
Yes.
What would that be, mate?
So it's funny that you say that, because that's kind of what we've been really trying to nail. Because the thing is, the more, and like I was telling you guys earlier when we were speaking, I'm really trying to learn a lot about marketing and a lot about advertising, just because at the moment I'm not in the gym, I can't speak face to people, and I don't have a massive Instagram presence. And to be honest, I don't really think you do nowadays to be successful either. I think a lot of people see followers and all that stuff as, that's what you need, when that's a whole different conversation. But a lot of what we're trying to find out at the moment is keywords and things that relate to those people that ultimately are our dream client or our avatar, right? Which is what we kind of teach in the foundation workshop. So what we've kind of tried to go for is, okay, first of all, what's the age group? So within that athlete perspective, right? So it's okay, well, it's former athletes, so potentially people that still play sports that consider themselves athletes or not pro. They might be semi-pro, or there may be somebody who's just got hurt and just can't seem to get back to their former self, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to target. And then we're thinking, okay, what age is that? Well, for us, we're thinking probably around 30 to 45, because we feel as though that's the right age range for us. Because I mean, I'm 29, the guy I'm working with is about 28, and we think that those people probably have a bit more set career at the moment in terms of income, all the same things we talk about in marketing on the foundation workshop. And then we've even started to look at keywords and thinking, okay, like, you know, what do people think about when we say sporty type, right? Because someone who considers himself a sporty type might not consider himself an athlete. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then it's kind of finding, okay, what kind of headlines or what kind of things draw people's attention. And then we've been doing a lot of surveys. We've created a lot of content. So we've created like, you know, something like 8 or 9 ebooks recently in different courses. And we've actually sent that out on surveys and just made our, like, you know, friends of ours that are former athletes who probably are out of shape, who are kind of like in that same mold. And we're asking them, what do you think of this? What do you think of these keywords? What do you think of these ebooks? Which ones do you prefer? Which one do you not like? Because again, we're not trying to assume what the market wants. We're trying to find out what the market needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
So that's, and again, a lot of it is exactly what you guys talk about, and what a lot of these guys have been talking about on all the on the Zoom calls you've had is just understanding what people want and need rather than assuming. And that's probably, again, a massive mistake I made even over the last 4 or 5 years, like recently, is you try to assume what people want rather than giving the market what they need, and they dictate that. Like what you post on social media. And I know I'm going on a tangent, but like if you post shit on social media and you send people emails and they don't get open and you don't get comments and you don't get messages, that right there is telling you that you're not giving them the right content.
It's always slightly. It's always slightly biased, isn't it? I mean, it's your assumption. So assumption comes from what you observe, but that observation is creating some, you know, what you perceive, you know, looking on Instagram would be slightly different to what I perceive based on experience and past and present and opinions, views, beliefs, values, all that kind of stuff. And so it's such a big point is that, because we always batter on about it, is that element of market research. It actually solves your problem with marketing.
Big time.
I mean, it really does. So anybody, I think it's a really great point you made there, and a great example of for yourself is if anybody is struggling with what to post, what to write in an email, what copy to do, what ebook to write, what, you know, you've got to spend the time understanding the market, and you're only going to understand the market by physically talking to them, either virtually or face to face, obviously. So I think that's a massive takeaway for the majority of people watching, actually. No, really interesting.
Just on that, Dan, so a 2-part kind of question this that leads us into about online coaching. Obviously, like you've explained, obviously you've gained experience throughout your career and stuff like that. Many different roles, right? Although whilst we've gone into this pandemic, you've had to switch on a new product and a new business literally overnight, which is what most of the personal trainers have had to do. Not that you've had to do, but you've wanted to do it. And I know from having conversation, you've had a passion for wanting to do it for a while and maybe put it off. And this has kind of switched you to do it, which is brilliant, right? Answer the question, mate. So the first part is, what have you learned over the past 2-3 years going through them roles that then has put you in a better position to switch on, be able to be equipped to switch on a product like online coaching overnight? And then what have you learned initially from the past 2 or 3 months from switching on an online business? So I suppose 2 questions there, mate.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think first one, what I've learned over the last 3 years, I think the biggest one was my systems and my admin and just being more structured. Like my personality is naturally just not wanting to do any admin, right? Not wanting to kind of have my time management sorted, having any organization. Like that took a lot of effort, and that massively helped by kind of climbing through Pure Gym, because naturally you go from running your own business, which is obviously a task on its own. You learn, you go through the foundation workshops, try to implement things. You probably don't do half of it. just because you're lazy. And then as I kind of became a manager, then I had to start managing people. So I can't really get away with not doing admin because ultimately, there could be massive repercussions in terms of like finances for the company. And then obviously I could lose my job if I don't do my job. So that massively helped. I think the coaching side of it too, and listening, and that's like literally the last, how long was I PT mentor for? Obviously, I think 7 months, 8 months. We kept doing this coaching and mentoring workshop. And for anybody out there, like, that part of the foundation workshop where we actually just actively listen and we talk about the consultation process. And some of you guys probably have done it. Some of you guys probably haven't. That has probably been one of the most like invaluable pieces of workshops or things I've done. And it's been so good in terms of helping me transition to online, because I think one thing that we probably took for granted is how much easier it is to speak to people face to face. And now you're having to go online and you're trying to sell either through messages or you're having to do a sales call, which you have no script for, you have no understanding of how to do it. And then you probably forgot to just listen. So you're just talking over this person all the time. So like those have been really good key skills, I would say. And they're getting a lot better because I've had to make that transition. So I would say time management, organizational skills, and then just kind of like actively listening and coaching would probably be the big three for the last 3 years. And then I think in terms of the last 3 months, the big lessons I've had is don't, like, just personally, and I'm not saying this applies to everybody because this is a hot take, but I'm never going to give anything out for free ever again. That's just me. And I remember, was it Luke Johnson? I think he said that at one point. I think he might have talked about, I think he said he was doing something for free, but as soon as the market was right, he was going to drive it. And I think he had a bunch of sales happen. But for me, I just realized that people take advantage of you, not in a bad way. They're just wanting to see what you have, right? And the people that value it will pay for you eventually. And just to give you guys context, like for those of you watching, we had 15 people paying us £50 a month before COVID. We'd gone through that whole process. Then we made everything for free because we wanted to help people out. Then we had 150 people in this group. I had over almost 400 people in an own group exercise group that I put together with another 4 or 5 coaches that were just doing live classes and raising money for charity. And that's one thing that we haven't even tapped into. But those 150 people, by the end of it, when we started charging again, we only actually ended up with another 15 paying us all different prices, which we can go into later. So for me, actually made me realize that people actually want to work with you, and those people are out there. It's, again, how you target them, how you market, and ultimately they're going to be more bought into the process. And I think that's why I don't want to make anything free again. Second thing is, sorry, go ahead.
Go on, mate. No, go on.
I was going to say, second thing is don't assume what the people want. Build it with them. Like if you started online coaching, if you started group coaching, whatever it is, ask people for feedback as much as you can, which is what we did. But I think don't try to wait till something is perfect till you launch it. That's one big thing I learned. You have something, throw it out there, create content. If it burns, if it falls and it burns, who cares? Take it as a lesson, get feedback from it, make it better. And probably the third one is, I would like, kind of in the content sense, I'm just like, become a creator, not somebody who's just, I don't know what the word is I'm trying to find, but I'm trying not to become someone who just died. Like, I don't want to be someone who's just on my phone all day. I'm just creating content and I throw it out there, and I'm trying not to worry about what everybody else does. I don't care if people don't like my stuff. It doesn't make a difference to me. So I think have the courage to just find your voice, do videos, talk to people, make a podcast, write ebooks. If people don't agree, they don't agree. Like, you can't just expect everybody to love your stuff. Because if you always worry about that, you're going to hold yourself back. And that's probably been one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the last 4 months, is just do what you enjoy, go at it 100%, and just take the lessons as they come. Hopefully that makes sense.
So not a curator, a creator. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah.
I was just wanting to dig into, to give some context to the guys on the not giving away anything for free.
Yeah.
As in, so give that some context, mate. Like, you wouldn't do, because ultimately you went from 150 people to 15 paying clients, which is a 10% conversion rate, which actually from leads is pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you mean you wouldn't follow that path again? Or
Yeah, so that's a good note. I guess it's probably good to give context. So I think the way I would structure it. So I look at my business now as a framework, which I was telling you guys earlier, and I look at it in terms of what I call it's like a value ladder, right? So let's say as an example, my framework is I'm trying to generate conversations, generate some kind of measurable lead, right? So as an example, if I'm going to be sending people to a link tree on my Instagram, I'm trying to measure whether or not that call to action on my Instagram generated comments, emails, or something along those lines, right? So that, for example, might be free. That might be a free ebook. It might be a free webinar. It might be a free phone call. It might be whatever, right? Now, the second step in my process is then, let's say as an example, my group coaching, which is kind of what we did, right? So our group coaching initially was paid, but what we did is I think we just made the mistake of, and again, I don't think there was a right or wrong answer here. We just made it free. And then we just added as many people as we could in it, thinking that it would pay off, right? And then what we struggled with is because we made it free, then we struggled to figure out at what point do we reintroduce the price, right? Because you don't want to piss people off, and you didn't want to lose the trust, and you didn't want to lose that value that you worked really hard to build. And again, the amount of stuff that we threw in this group, like we did webinars, we did this, we did that, like we did everything you could think about. And again, at the end of it, to your point, only 10% of people stayed with us, and they were paying us different varying prices because we just kind of introduced a pay what you feel. So I think what we learned is, you're doing people a disservice if you're not giving them the service that you're providing, right, at a price. Because ultimately you're solving a problem, right? It doesn't mean you can't have like free lead magnets or free webinars or free ebooks. Because if you look at the fitness industry, that's what a lot of people are doing. But that's just a way of capturing people's data or capturing their email or starting that conversation. So I just think from an actual one-to-one coaching or group coaching service, I will always make somebody invest, because 99% of the time they're going to be more bought into the process, even if it's just £1. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Essentially, what you're saying is, we get that. Is in a sense of what you're saying is don't have your call to action for free, because that's where you're going to put probably the most amount of work in, generate sales off the back of it. And I think what you just said then, there was no right or wrong answer when you just quoted that. Then there isn't a right or wrong way of doing it, because what happened is you reacted to a global pandemic that's never happened.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
So I think what you've got to take on board is probably morally at that point, you thought, well, there is an opportunity here for me to help people, but there's also a huge opportunity for me further down the line to generate a shit ton of leads, right? Mm-hmm. And you reacted like probably 50% of the fitness industry did. That way. So like you just said, there's no right or wrong. And I suppose the frustrating bit for you, which is my question, was probably in a personal trainer's mind of how much they take away or they expect for free off the back of that. And it can get very frustrating, can't it? I've been through it in a sense of, Jesus Christ, these guys are just here for it for free. They're not accountable. They're not very good with adherence. They're not getting involved in the lives, the webinars, the podcasts. They're just not getting involved. And then you sit there and think, well, you probably would have got involved if it was 50 quid, £100. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I understand it from that level. So just to talk about this, mate, because obviously this is going to really, really help PTs, especially going back into gyms, touch wood, that happens at some point soon. You've just talked about creating lead magnets that then has a higher call to action. You're just an online coach right now, and obviously I know you're going to go back into a gym at some point. What would you say are your biggest pointers for PTs that haven't done anything like this before, from what you've specifically learned? I know you've just said don't do call to action for free, but what type of process have you learned yourself and being in OFB as well? Because I know you've done a bit of work with Sucks to Do.
I think one of the biggest reasons I went with Sook, and I remember I was speaking to you, so I think the first thing I'd recommend before we even talk about lead magnets is like, just identify what your time is worth, right? And this is what I just had an honest conversation with myself one day. I said, okay, if I'm worth £40 an hour and it's going to take me the next 6 months to complete or put together or find out the resources, whatever I need, that Sook could teach me in a month, right? Then that kind of like cost effectiveness is worth buying this course, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I looked at it and said, okay, whatever, if it's $2,000, if it's $1,500, whatever he's charging these days, like I looked at it and said, okay, I'm investing in that because it's going to get me there probably 30 days or even 60 days quicker. So that's worth my time. So that's what I did. And in Sook's course, the big thing that it helped me with originally was the avatar stuff. We've done that a million times, but I would say don't be afraid to do that like quarterly, really. Literally in the last 4 months, I've probably broken down my avatar like 8 times. I'm not even kidding. I bought little courses here and there just off like Facebook ads and stuff just to see what they were doing. Just researching the market, seeing how people break it down. So that was a really good thing he helped with. Understanding like even just how to schedule your marketing from like a social media perspective. That's something that you could do that a lot of people don't do. I think people struggle to create content. But if you kind of have it scheduled out, it's like anything else, it helps. If you take the whole Gary Vee approach and just say, document your life and everything you create, just, transcribe it in a million other platforms, it makes your life a lot easier. Things like my systems in terms of how people book a sales call, how people go through Calendly, if you want to go through the whole email marketing thing, how to set up your autoresponders, what that looks like. These are all things that really help through Sook's course. And I would say even 60, 70% of it, I still have to probably work my way through and really apply. And I spent every single day on that course for like a good month and a half, and took the bits that I needed at the time. The big things that actually you can do, which again, you wouldn't have thought of it just until you did through the course, was, and this is where I think people really underestimate the power of just reaching out to your contact list and your networking, is just message your friends, your families, their friends, their families, their cousins, everybody that you have on your lists, and just ask them how they're doing and if they need help with anything training and nutrition related or fitness related. And that was one of the things I did. And I still do it to this day. And I don't know if you ever noticed, Ant or Nick, but like I try to put a lot of quizzes up on my Instagram. And what I do is I used to individually message every single person that answered those quizzes, especially the ones that answered the questions where I knew they needed help and support. And you'd be surprised how many people off the back of that keep contacting me, keep requesting for information, or even I've done some challenges or I've turned into clients. Some of them came into my group coaching as paying clients. Some of them are one-to-one clients now. Like, it's just crazy. And a lot of that just came from Sook just saying, look, have you tried doing this? Have you tried looking at this approach rather than what you're kind of doing now, which is just focusing so much on what you're posting every day, which it wasn't really what I was doing, but that would be a big one. So reach out to people. Don't be afraid to just try challenges. That's a big one. So one big thing that he kind of gets you to do in the beginning is create some kind of product or challenge that's going to allow you to then funnel them into your one-to-one or your group coaching. So we tried that. We did a challenge that was literally a 14-day habit challenge. We did it straight off Facebook ads. We didn't even put it on our social media really. And we had like 65 people join that in literally 2 days. And it cost us literally £5. It was ridiculous, right? And off the back of that, again, what we learned is a few little things in terms of how that operated as a system that we should have tweaked beforehand, but that still led us to 2 paying clients. So yeah, the conversion rate wasn't great, but if you get 2 paying clients out of a £5 ad, I'm not saying everybody has to go use Facebook ads, but these are things that he helps you kind of understand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think to actually answer your question, the big things I learned from Sook was how to actually just set up my systems a little bit better, how to make them more efficient, more effective, how to generate leads, through my social media, through emails potentially, and just through challenges, which is something I've never done. He gives you that framework. And ultimately, it's like anything else. If you just expect it to happen overnight, then, good luck, right? And I know that's a bit direct, but you need to put the work in. And it's like 99% of what you're going to learn in a lot of these courses. And I'm not saying Sook's course wasn't worth it, because it was, but 99% of what I've learned over the last 6 months, all of it's pretty much on your foundation workshops and in your My PT Zone. And I'm not trying to plug it. It's just facts. So before you start investing your money, just go apply everything Nick and Nat say, and go watch all the videos and apply what these guys say, and just try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean you failed. It just means you haven't found the right approach for you yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, mate. And I think a lot of people end up investing into businesses looking for that magic pill. And I think what happens is is they start to get frustrated. I suppose the reason why people do it is because they get frustrated that a lot of this has to come from you and hard work, like boring stuff and building on the boring stuff and being really consistent. Like, you've only got to look at the conversation you just had with us, then, is getting people from a social media platform into a one-to-one message, a one-to-one conversation, right? Which is actually, going back to what you said at the start, people neglect the fact that in gyms, that is, like, you have a captive audience every single day that you can interact and engage with. You have the systems regards to the support that you can sit down and apply, and if you can do that consistently. But some people just want that magic pill, that magic answer to say, this is the framework that you can go and do it. And this is where, obviously, we all get frustrated with 60 mentors and all of that type of stuff. When the basics done very well, you can apply what you've just done, plus a bit of digging into what systems that you put in place. Just on that, I know there's a lot of guys that are going to keep their own businesses. They go back into the gyms and all of that type of stuff. What systems would you recommend for a really good onboarding journey for your clients, and maybe the service whilst they're in there? What have you used that you found really handy and easy, and has supported your clients through that journey?
Yeah. So this one's interesting because I tried so much stuff in the first couple of months. And I think that's what the beauty of transitioning to online does, especially if you use your clients to build them with you. And that's, like, I can't stress that enough. Try not to just assume what people want. You know, if you invest in whatever platform, ask them if they like it. If they don't like it, then you need to scrap it right away. Like, don't wait. So that's what we did. So the biggest thing that we've done is Calendly, which I think is super easy. And then it's just a matter of how you generate those calls. I would say, in terms of systems as well, from like a marketing standpoint, just like get used to collecting emails. And I would say, don't be afraid to throw some stuff on social media that, again, has a call to action to your link tree to, you know, get emails. Like, in 3 months, I think I collected like 200 emails. Might not seem like a lot, but to say that all I did was, you know, put little ebooks out and people just naturally gravitate towards it, I think is pretty decent. And that's, again, that's no paid traffic, right? That's just organic. I would say having something like, I use TrueCoach for my programming. I use Just Coach, which is a fairly new platform. I know you kind of like trialed it on mine, didn't you? I think that's very, very client-centered. It's just evolving. I paid like 196 quid for life, and I think that offer might still be on, so you'll never have to pay for it ever again. And that's very good because it's kind of habitual in the sense that they get notifications to their phone that they have to do like morning journals, evening journals. You can customize it. So we have a morning journal, evening journal. We track their sleep. We track everything, right? It's not in crazy detail. You can go with as much detail as you want. Yeah, it's really good. So that's what we use. But I think keeping it really simple too, Ant and Nick, like the amount of stuff I used to have and sending people, now I just have a welcome pack. And you know what's worked really well is, what I do is, if somebody's interested, they set up a call through Calendly. And what I've actually done now is I send them an FAQ sheet, right? And I don't know if you guys do this with your mentor guys, but what I've started to do is I send them an FAQ sheet that has frequently asked questions. And underneath that, I have testimonials. And soon enough, we'll have YouTube video testimonials of the first 30 days of some of my clients. So before they even have a sales call with me, they're already in that kind of mindset of, wow, this guy's good. This guy knows what he's doing. Any questions I have, they've pretty much already been answered in terms of guarantee. So I offer all my clients like a 60-day guarantee because I don't think they're ever going to need it. And so all these things, I try to basically fight every objection before they've even come on the call, so that by the time they're on the call, they feel that much more confident that I'm the right person. And ultimately, then I just screen them and I find out whether or not at the moment they're either right for my one-to-one, and I just tell them full honest conversation, this is what you need, just like we teach the guys on the course. And if I don't think they're right for one-to-one yet, then I'd say, look, group coaching might be the right fit. And if I don't think that's right, then I just don't take them on. I'm not trying to fill my group coaching anymore. I'm just trying to work with 5 people online. That's it. That's all, which that's pretty much full. That's like, I just signed up my 5th one the other day. And then once that's done, I just send them a welcome pack, which is, I made it myself. Just a easy win for all those of you guys listening out there. Go on Canva, download a nice little cover picture, make it your own. put it on a PowerPoint presentation, write out all your content, and you can export that as a PDF. So you make your own ebooks within like minutes, right? So I send them that. There's hyperlinks on everything. There's a table of contents. It links them to their ParkU forums, to introduction videos, like just everything I can think about a client basically wanting and needing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then from that point, it's just streamlined. That's it. And I use Stripe for all my payments. I just send them an invoice, or usually, again, just a tip. I personally think if you can take the payment over the phone, personally, that works better for me, because then you're not chasing them up after you send them an invoice, and you don't give them the time to change their mind, which I know sounds a bit pushy. So I'm not trying to like sound like a dickhead when I say that. I don't know if I can say that on here, but I'm just like, yeah, I said it. But I would just be mindful that like once you've spoken to that person a few times, you know, you'll know whether or not they're ready. And if you know they're not going to pay over the phone, then they might never pay you. But then on the other end, I've had a client just recently, like I told you guys, I gave her a 2-week trial on my one-to-one because she was asking a lot of questions. I could tell she was very interested. So I was like, look, I just want you to know what it's like. And then I had a call with her on Sunday. I said, look, this is what the price is going to be. I explained her all the benefits. And then she said, yeah, I'll get back to you in the next 2 days. She got back to me literally 3 hours later and was like, I'm ready to sign up, because I'd done that whole process, right? So that might sound quite long-winded, but yeah, it's quite simple at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think it's a really good point to make, is that you have structure, processes, a step-by-step, but you're also not married to that so much that you're not listening to the individual, adapting it for the individual. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
A really good lesson is that you do have a step-by-step process, which is your 95% go-to. This is how people enter my business, my onboarding, but you are actively listening and reading people to understand what they need to then have that level of value to buy in and trust.
Yeah, and I think it's like I said before, and I'm sure you guys say the same. Everybody's so different. Everyone's going to have different business approach. Like what works for me might not work for people. But one big thing I've been thinking about is like a confused mind always says no. So I try to take as much confusion out of the process as possible, right? From a selling perspective. The other thing too, I've been thinking about when I was talking about like I'm trying to build a framework rather than a specific product, is I always look at like what problem does my product create? And what I mean by that is when I send people to a lead magnet and they download an ebook, what problem does that create for them and how can I solve that? Does that make sense? So if they download like a recipe guide, right? Well, the new problem now becomes, okay, how do I apply those recipe guides in my lifestyle and how does that become my new normal? So that may lead to a group coaching setting, right? What does a group coaching problem create? Well, it actually creates a problem that they might know how to do everything on their own, which is why one-to-one PT might be the best solution for them, which now becomes a new part of that ladder. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So I'm kind of looking at it that way in terms of how I run my business, because that creates new opportunities, new processes, just new ways to build value. And I think the more I look at it that way, the more it's really helping me in terms of my marketing and even just how I serve my clients, because there's always a new thing that I can add in, but that's still fitting within my same message. So I'm not talking about different stuff. I'm always still talking about the same message, just packaging it differently.
Okay, cool. We had a question from Steffi. How would you approach or interact with a potential client and help them understand your value without giving anything for free? You answered that before, to be fair. It's going over the free content stuff. Okay, mate. I think that was hugely valuable.
Yeah, it's brilliant, mate.
Like hugely valuable to the guys, and it's a testament to you as well. Is I like to give you some shit, you know that,
Yeah.
But it's a testament to you in the fact that I met you 5 years ago in that studio in Hunslet, and you stood out at that point, and I knew you were going to do well. And the roles you've come through, how you've adapted, like the amount that you've learned, probably in the mentor role alone about coaching and mentoring stuff like that, is probably going to help your clients going forward. You've then, overnight, whilst you've been furloughed, switched on an online business like that, and then you're flying with that. So it's an absolute credit to you, mate. And I think it's absolutely brilliant what you've done. And the fact that you're still coming on here and supporting the guys as well, which is class. Last question though, right? If you were to give 3 pieces of advice for PTs who have, suppose, moved online, but are about to go back into the gyms, what advice would you give to them?
Well, first off, thanks for that, mate. It's not often you get compliments from Matt Park, so yeah, appreciate that. And also, like, you know, for all the PTs out there, just honestly, just listen to what Nick and I have to say. Like, just do the work. Try to be as productive as you can and set those systems in place. Because honestly, if you just try to be, like, one thing we tell our guys right now, just be 1% better every day, right? If you've read the Atomic Habit book, you know why I say that. But yeah, just try to stick to what the guys say, and you will 100% get results out of it. So, top three tips for someone going back to the gym.
Yeah, going back into the gyms that have got this, I suppose they've switched to this online world, and you know my frustrations with a lot of personal trainers in a sense of they've had to switch to this online world, and a lot of them have, in these last 3 months, have actually offered a better service than they've ever done before, from what I've seen. So what advice would you give any PTs going back into the gym still thinking about this online product? Because clearly this time has highlighted that every PT needs additional products and revenue streams to run a successful business.
Yeah, I would say try to have a very clear pathway in terms of your business, right? So, you know, kind of like you do on the advanced workshop, where you talk about how there's different ends that a client can kind of come through. I think that's really, really, really important, especially now, because you've gone from having only face-to-face to now having, to your point, face-to-face, potentially group coaching and one-to-one coaching. You maybe have different products. Like, I know some people sell merchandise, they sell this and that. Like, these are all different avenues that can lead to a different opportunity for those clients, right? In terms of a revenue stream for your business. So identify what your framework is first. So identify, like, you know, at what point can they come in on either end, what that looks like. Ultimately, if they can shift up and down, what that would look like. And I think once you've done that, that's going to give you clarity as to what you offer as a business, which is going to make your marketing and it's going to make your message come across a lot, again, more clear when you're in the gym and even just like on social media, whatever you're doing. From there, I would then say, try to find out, and this is why Instagram is brilliant, and why surveys like the quizzes you can do on Instagram is awesome, because you can learn so much about your consumer base, right? So try to find out what problems people have already before they go to the gym. Like, what is it that they're worried about when they get to the gym? How can you solve that problem? What tools, what resources they're going to need when they get back to the gym? How can you solve that problem? So already you become that expert, hopefully, for your target market or your niche before you even get into the gym, and you've got everything ready. And then ultimately, the last one, which is kind of like, and I know you said we're not going to talk about lead gen, but like, you, at this time right now, I think there's going to be 2 types of PTs. And again, I'm assuming here, and I told you guys never to assume, but I think there's going to be 2 types of PTs. There's going to be one PT that goes in and just basically picks up where he left off and just absolutely kills it. And if we're honest, those PTs are probably actually getting paid more now, even after COVID, than they ever were before. And they're going to go into the gym having their framework, their products, and they're going to hammer it. And they're going to be talking to every single member, helping them, and they won't care if they're 2 meters apart, right? They're going to do everything they can based on what we just talked about. The other PT is going to come in the gym and they're going to go, I can't be 2 meters, or, you know, I can't be closer to 2 meters. It's impossible to talk to somebody. They're going to basically lack the courage to do it. They're going to have no clarity in terms of what they offer as a product. And they're just going to kind of let that be an excuse, when ultimately it's like, this is, by the way, if you can read this book, have you guys read this? High Performance Habits?
I haven't.
Yeah, it's decent.
Yeah, it's a good little book, but like there's 6 things that he talks about, and one of them is just having the courage. You know, if you can just improve like the courage you have every day, and that might be as simple as like saying, okay, I'm not going to let this whole 2 meter thing ruin my business when I get to the gym. Just speak to people, help them, ask them what they need, and then come up with those solutions. Like, I think those are the 2 types of PT. So ultimately, identify your framework, get clarity in terms of what your business is, what you have the courage to just kind of embrace the change, keep lead generating when you can. And I forgot what the other one was, but I think it was a good point. So
brilliant, mate. Listen, thanks so much for your time. That's invaluable and priceless for the PT.
Yeah, legend, mate.
no worries. Hopefully it helps.
Yeah, if we didn't have loads of time for questions, but if anyone does have questions, comment in the box below, and then we'll tag Dan in to answer them, or we'll answer them as well. Thank you for your time, mate.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
buddy.
Bye.